You know how I roll, kids.
All right.
Hey, kids. You like Primus?
I got plenty of popsicles down in the cellar.
Popsicles? What kind of popsicles?
Oh, I got all kinds. I got cherry popsicles. I got chocolate popsicles.
Oh, do you have strawberry?
Oh, I got plenty of strawberry.
Oh, boy. That sounds great, mister. I have to go ask my mom.
No, you ain't got to worry about her. She said it was fine.
Oh, you sure? You don't look familiar.
Yeah, it's the seduction of Ruby Rose. I don't know if I can handle this. Record breakers in 3, 2, 1.
Still offering to the drum machine. You put another face on my heart. The stars singing, the streaming color. The eyes single revealing. Not gonna be held back by the range's hour. No reaction without pain. I got far. Backpedal, angels go. Give up the throw today.
Buenos nachos, amigos, and welcome to Record Breakers, a music podcast where a group of friends gather together to share music with each other, like an album at a time, like a little book club for music. I'm Petey Rave, and I didn't come up with a clever thing to say. I got nothing. Here with me is my team, my squad, my crew, my quorum. We've got David.
And that, everybody, is the story of how I won the 2012 Arm & Hammer Baking Soda Invitational.
We've got Drew.
Hi.
Yes. And of course, still with us as our guest for these episodes, the one, the only, Shu-chan, Snoosh, aka Snowshoe.
I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah. We're here to talk about music.
Hey,
we're talking
I
about
understood that reference.
we're here to talk about music. We're here to talk about an album. And the provider of the album this week is David. David, what have you brought for us this week?
I have bought an album that is very near and dear to my heart from 2001 by a band from Surrey, England called Threshold. And this album is called Hypothetical. Petey Rave, Record Breakers fans, Threshold's 2001 album, Hypothetical.
And what an album. Let's talk about expectations. I'll start with Snoosh. Ash, what were your expectations coming into this album?
Well, knowing that it's DJM, I was sort of thinking it was going to be like heavy metal, and I wasn't entirely wrong. I felt kind of metally, and looking at what it is, it's a progressive metal band. So I'm like, got it.
Drew, what were your expectations coming into this album?
I was expecting really well thought out and well produced, and well composed metal music. But other than that, I didn't know what vein of that we were getting. So it was really interesting to see.
Yeah, I kind of like got the inkling that it might be some progressive metal. I think just from it being Deej and like the album cover, kind of like.
I'll just say, everybody, this is one of my tentpole albums.
Yes.
This is one of those pillar DJM albums that is in this genre. This one is it's an all-timer. It's one of the GOATs in my opinion.
I wonder if Age of Ultron got inspired by this album cover. Spoilers. Deej, David, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the themes, elements?
I would describe this album as an album from a band at the time and considered by many to be the UK's answer to Dream Theater. And some might say in some ways they may be the most consistent and solid band of this genre for this time period of the last 20 years or so. This is an album thematically that has a lot of different things, but it's all very maybe introspective. A lot of it is very thoughtful. There are stories being told. There's some introspection. There's some outward messages. One of the key themes from Threshold over their entire career has been sort of mixing a outward message with an inwards-looking story. And Hypothetical kind of has that. And there is there are some personal stories here, inwards and outwards, all told through a package of guitars and keyboards and drums. This was an album that came along at a time where I was not liking most rock and metal very much. I found a lot of it to be, for the lack of a better term, purposefully dumb, very dumbed down. And I remember hearing on a college radio station here in the Detroit area, on a radio show called In the Flesh Radio, named after the Pink Floyd song. I remember hearing a song on this album that had some really cool guitar parts, some really cool keyboard parts, and some really interesting lyrics talking to a narcissistic person. And this was really the song that made me realize, okay, there are metal bands out there that are a little more intelligent. And that's when Threshold really came into my world. And it was the final track on this album, Narcissus. And this one is a pretty big one. It's a big one.
Yeah. Ash, how would you describe this album musically? What would be the theme songs, elements that pop out?
Well, what's funny is that I was thinking, like, this kind of sounds like a rock opera, like, where, it has, like, the story, like you mentioned, like, the story's being told, but as I've mentioned in the previous episode, I don't hear the lyrics really well overall. I'd actually have to look it up, so I just kind of go with what they're kind of feeling it out, and it always had this tone of like I'm going on this journey with them in some way. So it feels like each song progresses itself in some way. Not to make a pun on progressive metal, but just that each song felt like it tied into the previous song in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But as I mentioned, I mentioned this before we started recording. It was this has a very great like work album. It's like I turn it on, I can put myself to work and get in the zone.
Get shit done music.
Get shit done album.
Don't let her into her zone.
Yes.
I want to go into the shoe zone.
Yeah. I'm in the zone.
I'm all about the shoe zone.
Yes. Drew, how would you describe this album musically?
What's in the Drew zone?
The Drew zone, much like a
IBC.
P-zone, is filled with mostly mozzarella.
Yes. And IBC.
Yes. Mug, actually, is my root beer of choice.
Okay.
If we're gonna get into it, but I do like a good IBC every now and again. A good sarsaparilla.
Yes.
A Sioux City sarsaparilla.
Yes.
But no, in the Drew Zone, this album is fantastic from top to bottom. Spoiler alert. The sound of it is very guitar forward. And then looking up a little bit about the band and finding out the only member of the band that has been there the entire time, it's the lead guitar player, kind of makes that make a lot of sense. But
they do have one of those classic member timelines where it's a bunch of different lines and then maybe one line that goes across.
Yep. It's the progressive rock thing of if you don't make 5 albums and then quit, you have like 30 members.
Yes.
Like I talked about with King Crimson.
Yeah.
Yep. But the singer for this was just epic. It's got that thing I very much like in this style of like progressive, like almost power metal, where it's like very fist pumpy, and like a lot of grandiose things. I wanted to get into the story more. I just didn't have as much time to like dive into that side of things as I would like to. There were moments of crunch in it, which was very welcome for me, but also had these moments where it harkened back to like the 70s and 80s almost. Like I was hearing bits of like Sabbath influence and like Maiden and Metallica, like early Metallica influence and stuff like that. But like if those bands were like even more music nerds, I guess, and really like thought it out. It's sort of in my head as like this would very much fit into like the prog, like D&D metal side of things. Like you put this on, you play a campaign with your friends, like it makes sense in that respect for me. But it was very well thought out and very smart and very well done. Like the thing about like prog music in general, whether it be the more metal side of things or what have you, it lives and dies by composition, in my opinion, and knowing when to use what instruments and where to go with them. And I think that this band really knew where to go with their instrumentation and how to use the sonic space, as it were, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, I think they had so much that was really cool and smart. But also like the big thing is also it's all that, and it's just fun too. Like it's epic and it's anthemic, but it's also fun to like rock out to. Like it still doesn't lose like its fun factor. At least for me. And I think it has a really cool like it has a really cool like anthemic feel to just overall, which I think one of my big notes. Also, you can play.
I'm just gonna take a guess, Petey. I'm just gonna take a wild guess. Oceanbound.
Sure.
I have things to say about that song.
That one is memorable. I will say I have this one note. One of those things where you start to write something down that get distracted, and you come back and you don't remember what you wrote, what you were starting to write before you finished it. I have a note here that says, "This is the entire thing. It is obvious you." I don't know what the
is obvious you.
So if you want to finish that sentence, there's your call to action in the comments. It is obvious to you.
Like many prog albums, we're going to leave that open to the interpretation of the listener.
Exactly. But yeah, let's get into some of the key tracks. David, what will be some of the key tracks for you?
You know what? I'm just going to be completely self-indulgent here. I'm just going to rattle them off. Light in Space. It's the most interesting song about God that I've ever heard in my life. I love that song. It's about God, and it's the most interesting song about God that I've ever heard.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah,
okay, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that. Okay.
Yep, that song's about God.
I'm kind of connecting the dots, but now I want to listen to it again. That's weird. Okay.
The Ravages of Time. Self-contained 10 minutes of brilliance. It is a self-contained song, and I absolutely love it. Sheltering Sky, a song with all of this guitar led by piano. Oceanbound with its amazing chorus. Long Way Home with its amazing chorus and outro. Keep My Head. It sounds like the best Phil Collins song that he may have left off the track. And, of course, Narcissus, as I said, that was kind of the song that changed everything. Narcissus was my prog awakening.
Yes. It awakened something in you. Ash, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
I think so. It's really hard because like none of them I remember quite like on its own. As I said, it's kind of a very great. I get lost in it. I really like the opening song, Light in Space. Like I think it really sets the album up for what you're going to be expecting. I think when I had gotten to, it was either Oceanbound or Long Way Home. It was just like, oh, this song had a very interesting tone to it. I can't really articulate it. I apologize if I'm speaking out of my butt here.
It's what I do every week. So
every week. But what's great, so
Taco Bell.
there's this great website I like using for music. It's genius.com.
Never heard of it.
Wait, what?
We're just having fun.
Okay.
I love you, Ash. Keep going.
Okay. No, I like it because there's a lyrics, but then there's people can contribute and break down the lyrics, and it's like, what's its meaning? There's not a whole lot that I'm finding here, but it's really fun because there's some spots that are showing up that they're like, oh, I think this is what this means. Whether it's right or wrong, it's not the point.
Sometime find gangster rap and go into the Genius meeting.
Oh, they're just like so many highlights everywhere.
It's hilarious.
Oh boy.
It's going into like the deep meaning of rap lyrics and then seeing the side on Genius where they have to explain like what he means by that is this because this gang did this, and then explaining the history of like the gang violence.
1994.
Yes.
Well, it's great because it's like a secondary Wikipedia for albums. I'm really sad this never showed up on my radar.
I can honestly say I would genuinely be happy to expound on all of the songs on this album.
Yeah. Genius.com is a dope site.
Yeah, the only other thing that was really interesting that on Spotify they include the live recordings.
Live improvs and stuff like that. It was really cool.
I wasn't sure what was different between the original songs and the recorded songs and the live songs. They it looked like they were a little shorter, but they sounded fantastic, both of them. I'll be honest.
Oh yeah, it's more like they took those and like it's just hearing them live. It's like hearing a live band. It's just a nice.
I feel like if I was actually there, I'd be probably 10 times more impressed. The recording of a live show is like.
I will say, to use a musician term, Threshold are an incredibly tight band live. It's almost scary.
Do they still tour?
Like a
Oh
Toyga.
yes. They're still very much around. They just
all these old
put out an album
people in
forever.
2017.
Some of the people that played on this record no longer with the band because it's prog.
But some of the people from previous records have returned.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Prog rock.
Yes.
It's a minefield.
Yes.
They're all friends.
I'm looking
Rest in peace.
I'm looking forward to the Record Breakers member timeline when we have like the multiple people. Shout out to
Somebody
All
wants
right.
to make that Wikipedia page.
Yeah, whenever we're actually notable enough.
Overall, there were things in the there wasn't one thing I could truly pick out that really kind of like grabbed me. I can just say like I remember I know what I felt with this album, and it was very interesting. I actually don't listen to a lot of prog metal, progressive metal, so like this was a nice fresh change of pace to what I'm usually listening to.
Mm-hmm. Drew, what would be some of the key tracks for you?
Well, one, Light in Space. This might be the Mars Volta fan in me coming out, but the way this song started was, as the kids would say, an entire mood. The like very ambient, weird like ease into it, sort of entrance. I'm always super down for. The weird effects and such are certainly my cup of tea a lot of times. The Ravages of Time, I have to mention as well. The dark brooding, like curl your upper lip guitar, the effect on the vocals that comes in from time to time. I don't like a lot of effects on a vocal that's this good, but when you use it sparingly as like a bit of spice, I can be down. And then Ocean Bound. I asked for some help with the pronunciation. I'm still going to be bad. But the beginning of this song sounds like something Takashi Tateishi, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Tateishi.
Okay. That would compose. If the name's not familiar, to you. One, get schooled. Two, go listen to all of Mega Man 2's soundtrack. But that being said, the whole song is great. It hit at the beginning. I was like, why does this sound like it's coming from like an NES? Like, it sounds like what, what's the band? The Megas would like pull out, like putting Mega Man music to actual instruments. Put like a Mega Man song that never existed.
Yeah.
So like I was super in. Like I was like, okay, this is dope.
Yeah. Yeah, all of those songs are fantastic, especially like Light in Space, how it starts things off. I will give a shout out to Keep My Head for being very like 80s a ballad kind of like, but was still giving it like progressive core, but still like being kind of like just this like 80s soft rock ballad in the best way possible.
It is absolutely Phil Collins. It's 100% Phil Collins.
Yeah,
I think the band members have said that like unapologetically. Yes.
Yeah, and I enjoy that immensely. But yeah, I think you all covered the tracks, but it's like that one I wanted to give a shout out to specifically for that. But let's bring it back around the horn and talk about some conclusive thoughts. Ash, what would be your conclusive thoughts on this album?
I would definitely recommend it, like as something worth listening to, even if they're not into metal. Like, this feels like a nice entry point for people who may be like, I want to figure out who is really hot in metal. And it's like, start here and then work your way into more hardcore stuff.
Yeah. Then eventually, it's going to take you a while to get to King Crimson, but, you'll get there eventually. You don't want to mainline that too hard. You need
Talk
a gateway.
to me first.
Yes. You need a gateway. You need someone to guide you, to hold your hand, to make sure your trip isn't too bad. Drew, what will be your conclusion on this album?
Right now, I'm trying to figure out who the hottest person in metal would be, but I don't know of any attractive people who play metal. It's mostly dudes that look like Scott Ian. Like,
yeah.
like I'm trying to think.
The members of Band Maid.
It would have to be like, I don't know. I have to think about this.
Yes.
But this is one of those things where there is very particular things I like in metal and always gravitate back towards and really enjoy. The more power on the side of a hill, like sort of stuff that makes you feel like you can take on pretty much anything. Is usually what I go towards, which is why I always cite stuff like Terry Sauce and Camelot and like those types of things. This doesn't play in those same realms, obviously, but I got some of the same emotion and some of the same feeling out of like the grandiose vocals and the driving guitar, and that added in with how well it was composed, in my opinion, I think is something that really sets this band apart from some of the contemporaries I mentioned just now, but still lets it be really fun. Like, you can go surface level and it's great, and then you can put on like this on some good speakers or a good set of headphones and really dive in, and it's still great. Or
you can listen to the Threshold album Subsurface and go deeper.
Yeah. Yes.
But I think it's totally worth a listen.
Yes. Also, you throw out the lead singer of Lacuna Coil. Not bad. Yeah.
Fair.
Christina Scavia.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this album is just it's well made. It's super well thought out, super well constructed, super well performed. It's epic and anthemic in a very classic way, in a very very iconic, very understandable way, and it works well. Like, this is really cool. Like, album that, yeah, like Ash said, that you can bring to someone as like an entry point to like metal or prog rock or something. Hey, here's something with a little bit more flavor. Like trying to, introducing somebody to craft beer. It's like, I know you like that kind of beer, but here's something that just has that little flavor, a little flavor. It's still enjoyable. It's still stuff, but it has some flavor and has some thought to it.
And it's seasonal. It'll come back next year.
Yeah. And it works. But yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. Like many, anything new to you is worth checking out. But this is going to be an enjoyable ride, especially for cranking in your car and just speeding down the highway. Yeah.
Don't crank in your car.
You should totally crank this album in your car.
Yes. But no
Don't do the
cranking
other
in the
thing.
car.
But
No.
don't do that. That's
Also,
not
don't
safe.
you crank in your car.
You're
Oh,
not
shit.
Jason Statham.
No.
We're not. Jason
None of
Statham.
that is safe, kids.
No.
Don't do
None
that.
of it. But yeah, last but not least, David, what would be your conclusion on this album?
I would love for everyone to listen to this album, not just as an entry point into this genre, but for an album as a David album. This is about as much of a tentpole album as I have. This is a gateway into my musical brain. This might be album number 1 in my musical brain. I think that Threshold, for their entire catalog, they have an ability to rise above the stereotypes and tropes that come with being a prog band and a more melodic band. I think they take those stereotypes and they rise above them with just how good they are at what they do, whether it's writing a 10-minute metal song or a 4-minute 80s pop song. And I think that just about all of the songs here, you might look at the song length and you might freak out for a second, but aside from the big 2, they're all very easy to listen to. It's got big rock choruses, it's got some loud crunching guitars, it's got some good drumming, it's got a fantastic vocalist from the late great Andrew McDermott, and I just think that this whole album is just a perfect package of lyrical composition, songwriting, and just some cool, fun metal by some dudes that know what they're doing. So please check this album out and at me if you do.
Yes. Go check it out. It's on our Spotify playlist, but we'll get to that in a moment. Those are our thoughts. Now we get to the main event of the evening. We get to the moment we've all been waiting for, our haiku reviews. We're all ready. We're all prepared. We all have our haikus.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Let's get down to it. Ash, why don't you go first? What is your haiku?
All right. Progressing on sound. Trust the metal and song. And get your shit done.
I like it. Drew, what is your haiku?
Brilliant metal sound with a fist up in the air. We'll visit some more.
My haiku, epic prog metal that's musically sound and still fun to rock out. David, what is your haiku?
Powerful, poignant, well produced, and well composed. This album, my brain.
My brand.
My brand.
Brain.
I know. It's your brain and your brand.
Your brain is your brand.
Oh God, my poor brand.
Yes.
Your special brand.
Yes. Those are our thoughts on Threshold, Hypothetical. You can, of course, check it out on our Spotify playlist.
Spotify.
Spoofy. It's on our Spoofy.
Flies. It's on swattingflies.com.
Wait, are you on the spoofy?
Yes, we're on the spoofy too. I'm working on it.
Pond5.com.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Do they
Thank you,
still
Pond
exist?
5. Oh yeah. I've had to get them full.
We've used them frequently here on the
He's
Record
like,
Break.
yes, they do.
Yes, I need them. I'm not
Hey,
about to
Pond
get
5, if you're looking
demonetized
for an advertiser.
Yes.
How you doing?
Pond5.
Labelli.net at PDRave on Twitter.
Exactly. Thank you for the Fanny Pack Wrestling theme. That iconic song. Funny thing is, when I bought it, it was $8. When I recently checked on the price of that same song, it's $40. We raised the value of that song.
Fanny Pack was a draw, baby.
Yeah, we draw money.
Need that town.
Go to the pay window.
Yeah, ask Seth Rollins. The money you make is the most important bit. Timely.
Timely. All right. You can of course check that out on a Spotify playlist. Play Record Breakers. Record Breakers, the home game. Do your due diligence, and your due diligence on the Spotify playlist will be next week's record. Drew, you have the turn next week. What do you have for us next week?
So I've brought these guys on before. I brought in a record called Day Job, which had some Disney covers on it and some newer music by them, newer-ish music by them. But that was with two people who aren't on the podcast anymore. So I decided that I was going to bring another album of theirs. I didn't want to do a repeat of Day Job because you already know me and PD's thoughts on that album. So I decided that I was going to bring a different one. It's a band from Huntington Beach, California, known as Suburban Legends. And their album, Let's Be Friends and Slay the Dragon Together.
Yes. I like this.
Already love the album title.
Yes. Look forward to that. But that'll be next week, and this is this week. And you can, of course, find us all over the internet. David is at Call Me DJM. Drew is at XTruciferX. Ash is at Artshu, ARTSCHU. I'm at PD Rave. The show's at 4 Record Breakers. That's the number 4 Record Breakers. RecordBreakersPodcast.com, RecordBreakersPodcast@gmail.com, Rebelli.net for this and other shows, Rebelli TV on YouTube,
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher.
Spotify.
Are we on Anchor, PD?
I'll work on it. We're on SoundCloud. Wherever you can find us, we're on YouTube with all the things. Subscribe, like, share, give us feedback, let us know what you think of the album, do all the things. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
Toodaloo.
Bye bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.